Today, we're going to be looking at the Constitution in more detail. We're going to be looking at how the Constitution got approved, so the ratification process, and also at the Bill of Rights. Why the Bill of Rights was included and what the Bill of Rights means. So, after the Constitutional Convention. So, the Constitutional Convention was over on September 17th, 1787. Some of the framers feared the changes would look like they gave too much power to the national government. They anticipated resistance from Congress and the state legislatures. Before concluding the convention, they outlined the ratification process to bypass these bodies. Voters in each state would elect representatives to a state ratifying convention. 9 of the 13 states had to agree, and so the battle for ratification had begun. So even though they wrote this brand new constitution, it still had to be approved by the states. The states still had to agree to it. So two groups emerge in this fight: the anti-federalist and the federalist. And so for definitions, the next two slides are going to go into greater detail about what each of these groups stood for. The anti-federalists. They believed we did not need a stronger national government. So they're anti-federal, anti the federal government, or in a sense, not against it completely, but against it having too much power. They felt the Constitution betrayed the democratic ideals of the Revolution, believed a representative government could only exist in a small territory, so that the 13 colonies was already too big to truly have a representative government. They felt the Constitution was an assault on state sovereignty, republicanism, and the liberty of the people. It was too powerful, and that the president would be too similar to a king. So again, very fearful of kind of the way that the British monarchy had treated them and the kind of the abusive power that they took with them. That they don't want that to happen for our new government. The Anti Federalists were also upset because the Constitution lacked a Bill of Rights. Without a Bill of Rights, the government could easily violate individual liberties. They felt that these specific rights of the people should be spelled out. It shouldn't be insinuated or implied. They wanted to have specific rights in the Constitution to tell the government and for the people to know what their rights were. So, this was a huge, huge sticking point for them. The Federalists. They were enthusiastic supporters of a powerful national government. Um, they still feared that it could become too strong, but they knew that a weak national government was worse. So they needed to give it enough power, but be able to regulate the power in order to have it function correctly. A powerful national government would strengthen the fragile union and promote public good, defend against foreign enemies, regulate trade, put down internal disturbances. The Constitution would fix the problems of the Articles of Confederation while also limiting power through the separation of powers. And so here I have pictured Alexander Hamilton, who's a famous Federalist. So he loved the new Constitution. He was devoted to getting this new Constitution passed. And so him, along with a few others, set about their goal in this huge campaign to promote the new Constitution. And so what they did was they began writing the Federalist Papers. So Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Hay authored these papers. It was a series of articles defending the Constitution published in New York newspapers. And so they wrote under the pen name Publius 85 total essays turned into a single volume and circulated around the states. The Federalist Papers explain the principles in the Constitution and why they were included. They felt that they needed to kind of break it down for people to understand why, the national government had certain powers, why it was important to have a strong federal government. And so the Anti Federalists wrote their own response, wrote under the name Brutus and the Federal Farmer, champion individual liberties. So, winning over the states. The Federalists were well prepared and targeted the small states first. Small states like the idea of equal representation in the Senate, and so they quickly ratified it. Delaware was the first. Large states like Massachusetts, Virginia, and New York were more difficult. The Federalists agreed to add a Bill of Rights. So Massachusetts, Maryland, and South Carolina soon ratified. New Hampshire was the ninth to ratify. The Constitution then went into effect. Eventually, all 13 states ratified. The Bill of Rights was the key to winning over all of the states. The Bill of Rights. During the first Congress, James Madison made a Bill of Rights a priority, suggested rights be protected in amendments to the Constitution. Pulled these rights from the English Bill of Rights, the Virginia Declaration of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. So these are all kind of inspired by ideas of kind of what rights people already had under the English Bill of Rights in states like Virginia, and even in the Declaration of Independence, kind of the ideas of what was promised initially. Congress proposed 12 amendments and sent them to the states for ratification. 10 were ratified, and they were collectively known as the Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They came collectively, all 10 were approved at the same time. And so we will see more amendments to the Constitution, but they tend to come either one at a time, or maybe like with the Reconstruction amendments, it kind of happened back to back, but they all happen kind of more singularly later on. The Bill of Rights. So here's a list of all of the Bill of Rights, and we'll talk about them in more detail in class. So these are rights are held by different groups. You have individuals, all people, classes or categories of individuals, children or disabled, institutions, school or businesses. There are 3 categories of rights: personal rights, economic rights, political rights. The Ninth Amendment are unenumerated rights. It is impossible to list all rights and liberties to be protected from government interference. And then the 10th Amendment sets up a system of federalism, so division of power between the federal government and the states. So recognizing that the states have some powers and the federal government has other powers. So it protects the powers of the states from abuses of national government. So this is the end of our notes. In your activity today, you will kind of go into more depth on the Bill of Rights. We'll have more of a discussion on what each of these different amendments mean. So you want to go back, make sure you answer your key terms